There is a bottle sitting at the back of almost every Indian home that costs less than a plate of samosas and gets opened maybe twice a year. Castor oil. Nearly everyone thinks they already know what it is for, and because everyone thinks they know, almost nobody knows what it can actually do. Here is the part you were never told. India grows the overwhelming majority of the world's castor crop, most of it out of a handful of districts in Gujarat. The country that supplies this oil to the entire planet has had generations to work out what to do with it. And Indian homes, workshops, tanneries and farms use it for things that have nothing to do with what you are assuming right now. Most hack videos hand you 20 tips that are obvious or simply do not work. These are different. Every one is something somebody in India uses because they need it to work. We are counting down 25, starting at number 25, and working our way to number 1. Stay with me for the final 5, because number 2 is the mistake almost everyone makes with this oil, and number 1 explains why any of the rest of it works at all. Number 25. Put 1 drop on a squeaking hinge and it will stay quiet for months. Reach for castor oil instead of cooking oil the next time a door in your house starts announcing itself. At room temperature, castor oil is roughly 10 to 15 times more viscous than the oil in your kitchen. And that thickness is the entire point. A thin oil runs down the door frame within an hour, and the squeak returns by the weekend. Castor oil clings to the pin inside the hinge barrel and stays there. Open the door halfway so the hinge takes no weight. Put a single drop on top of each pin, then swing the door slowly back and forth about 10 times to draw the oil down inside. Wipe the outside dry. The noise disappears in under a minute. Number 24. Lift old sticker glue off steel dabbas without a single scratch. Every Indian kitchen has that one steel container with a price sticker fused to it, and every attempt at scraping it leaves a scar. Coat the sticker and the residue around it in castor oil until it is properly wet, then leave it 15 to 20 minutes. Oil works its way between the adhesive and the steel, and because castor oil is so slow-moving, it stays sitting on a vertical surface long enough to do that instead of dripping off. Press a cloth onto the glue and roll it off with your thumb. Anything stubborn comes away with a second coat. Finish with dish soap and warm water to strip the oil film. No blade, no scraping, no scratches. Number 23. Free a jammed zipper on a bag or jacket in about 30 seconds. Zippers seize because dust, detergent residue and tiny burrs build up in the teeth. And once the slider catches, forcing it usually breaks it. Dip a cotton bud in castor oil and run it along both rows of teeth above and below the stuck slider. Give it a minute. Then work the slider in short movements, a centimeter at a time, backwards first and then forwards, letting the oil pull itself into the gap. The thickness that helps on a door hinge helps again here, because it stays on the teeth instead of soaking into the fabric. Once it runs freely, wipe the teeth with a dry cloth so it does not attract fresh dust. Number 22. Rust-proof your iron tawa and kadai before you put them away. This one matters most between June and September. If an iron tawa, kadai, or old cast iron pan goes into a cupboard unused for weeks, humidity reaches the metal and you find orange spots waiting for you. Once the pan is completely dry, wipe the whole surface, inside and out, with a cloth carrying about half a teaspoon of castor oil. Then wipe again with a clean cloth until nothing feels wet. You want a film so thin you can barely see it. Because castor oil does not dry or harden, that film stays a film and blocks moisture for the whole storage period. Wash the pan properly before cooking with it again. Number 21. Break loose a bolt, latch, or gate hook that rust has welded shut. Before you go at a seized bolt with a spanner and snap the head off, give the oil a night to work. Castor oil creeps into the microscopic gap between a rusted thread and its nut through capillary action, and the more it wets that gap, the less force you need. Apply generously around the joint. Tap the metal 4 or 5 times with the back of a spanner to send vibration through the threads and open the path, then apply again. Leave it overnight. In the morning, apply once more and turn slowly and steadily rather than jerking. Old gate latches, window grill bolts and hinge pins that felt permanent will usually give. Number 20. Bring dry, cracked leather chapels and belts back to life. Leather is a fiber network that stays supple only while it holds oil, and Indian summers pull that oil out until the surface goes pale and cracks along the flex lines. Castor oil is used across the leather trade as a softening agent for exactly this reason. Clean the leather with a damp cloth, let it dry fully, then work a small amount in with your fingers using circular pressure, paying attention to the creases where it bends. Leave it 4 to 6 hours, then buff off whatever was not absorbed. The color deepens slightly, the stiffness disappears, and the cracking stops spreading. Number 19. Stop wet soil sticking to your spade. Anyone who has dug black cotton soil after rain knows the problem. Within 4 strokes, the blade carries more mud than the ground does. Wipe the blade of your spade, kerpie or trowel with a castor oil film before you start, and clay stops bonding to the steel. Wet soil grips metal because water forms a bridge between the two surfaces, and an oil film breaks that bridge so the soil slides off under its own weight. Castor oil suits this better than a thin kitchen oil because it survives the abrasion of digging instead of being scraped away in the first minute. It also leaves the blade protected against rust. Number 18. Get scissors, shears, and nail clippers cutting cleanly again. Blades stop cutting long before they are actually blunt. Sticky residue, tape glue, plant sap, and oxidation build up along the interfaces where the two blades pass each other, and the drag from that film makes the tool feel dead. Open the scissors fully, put a few drops of castor oil on a cloth, and wipe the flat interface of both blades along their whole length. Work the handles 30 times to spread it through the pivot, then wipe off the excess so the oil does not transfer to paper or cloth. Kitchen scissors, garden shears, and tailoring scissors all respond to this. Number 17. Hide scratches and revive dull wooden furniture. Rub a little castor oil into a scratch on a wooden table, cupboard, or door, and watch it darken and settle into the surrounding color. Light scratches look pale because the groove scatters light instead of reflecting it evenly. Oil fills the groove, restores an even surface, and the scratch stops catching your eye. Apply along the grain with a soft cloth, let it sit 20 minutes, then buff hard. On old furniture gone chalky and gray, the same treatment across the whole panel brings back depth. Test a hidden corner first, because this works on bare or oiled wood, but will simply sit on top of a hard varnish or polyurethane finish. Number 16. Keep an old sewing machine running smoothly. If there is a black hand crank sewing machine in your family, someone in a previous generation almost certainly oiled it with castor oil, and they were not improvising. Castor oil was standard machine oil for this class of low-speed, high-load mechanism because it keeps its film under pressure rather than being squeezed out. Put 1 drop into each oiling point, turn the wheels slowly by hand for a minute so the oil reaches the whole mechanism, then let the machine sit a few hours before you sew. Run a scrap of old cloth through afterwards to catch anything that migrated to the needle plate. Number 15. Save leather-bound books, old files, and diary covers from cracking. Leather book spines and old office file covers flake at exactly the point where they bend, and once that layer goes, the covering lifts away from the board underneath. Put the smallest amount of castor oil on a soft cloth, so little that the cloth barely looks damp, and wipe across the leather in long strokes. Work slowly along the spine, because that is where the movement is. Let it absorb overnight and buff off any residue. Use a fraction of what you would use on chapels, because too much oil on a thin book covering will darken it unevenly and can transfer onto the pages. On a valuable book, test the backboard first. Number 14. Make a 2-ingredient furniture polish that beats what you buy. Grate about 1 part beeswax into 4 parts castor oil by volume. Warm the mixture gently in a steel bowl set over hot water, and stir until the wax fully dissolves. Pour it into a jar, and let it set into a soft paste. What you have made is the same basic formula behind traditional wax polishes. The wax gives a hard protective surface, and the oil carries it into the wood and keeps the paste spreadable. Because castor oil never fully dries, this stays workable for months instead of hardening in the tin. Apply a thin layer with a cloth. Wait 15 minutes. Then buff hard. Use it on wooden furniture, eula chains, wooden handles, and door frames. Number 13. Remove chewing gum, tar, and sticky tree sap. Gum crushed into a car mat, tar off a freshly laid road, or sap from a tree you parked under all share one property. None of them is water-soluble, so scrubbing with soap achieves nothing, and rubbing spreads them. All 3 dissolve in oil. Saturate the spot with castor oil and give it 10 minutes, longer for tar. The sticky mass loses its grip and breaks down into something you can lift rather than smear. Push it off with a blunt edge, working from the outside inwards so you do not widen the stain, then wash the area properly with dish soap to remove the oil itself. On fabric, test an unseen corner before you commit. That is 13 down, and every one so far has been about metal, wood, leather, and fabric. Stay with me, because the next stretch moves into the garden, into cleaning, and into a few things people in India have been doing with this oil for a very long time. Number 11 in particular is the one that surprises people most, because it involves keeping something out of your garden, rather than putting something into it. Number 12. Burn it in a diya for a steady, low-smoke flame. Castor oil has been a traditional lamp oil in India for centuries, and it is a genuinely good one. It has a high flash point compared to lighter oils, so it does not flare, and it burns with a steady flame that does not gutter. The one adjustment you must make is the wick. Castor oil is too thick to climb a thin, tightly rolled cotton wick, so the flame starves within minutes and people conclude the oil does not work. Use a thicker, looser wick with more surface area, and let it soak for a couple of minutes before lighting. Keep any lit lamp on a stable, non-flammable surface, away from curtains, and never leave it unattended. Number 11. Keep burrowing pests out of your lawn and garden beds. This is not folklore. Castor oil is a recognized active ingredient in commercial repellent products sold specifically for moles and burrowing rodents, and the mechanism is straightforward. The oil coats soil particles in the food sources within the tunnel network, making the area unpleasant enough that the animal relocates rather than dying. Mix roughly 2 tablespoons of castor oil with a teaspoon of liquid dish soap, which is what lets oil and water combine at all. Then dilute that concentrate into a large watering can of water. Soak the affected patch of soil thoroughly and reapply after heavy rain. It pushes the problem out of the treated area rather than eliminating it, so treat the full zone, not one spot. Number 10. Use castor cake in your pots as fertilizer. When castor seed is pressed for oil, what is left behind is a solid cake, and in India that cake has been a garden input for generations. Nurseries and agricultural shops sell it as castor cake or arandi kali. It carries a useful nitrogen content and releases it slowly as soil organisms break the cake down, rather than dumping it all at once, and Indian gardeners also value it because working it in discourages several soil-dwelling pests. Mix a small handful into the top layer of soil in a large pot and water it in. Keep it away from pets and children, because the cake is not the oil and is never edible. Number 9. Soften cracked heels, dry cuticles, and rough elbows. This is the one cosmetic use where castor oil's thickness is a genuine advantage rather than an inconvenience. Thin oils absorb fast and are gone within the hour. Castor oil sits on the skin surface and stays there, which is exactly what you want overnight on a heel. Wash and dry your feet. Work a small amount into the cracked areas and around the nails, and put on a pair of old cotton socks so you are not sliding across the floor and not transferring oil onto bedding. By morning, the skin is noticeably softer and easier to work on with a pumice stone. Do a patch test on your inner arm first, and keep it away from your eyes. Number 8. Use it as a pre-wash hair oil for shine and easier detangling. Indian hair oiling predates any product marketing, and castor oil has always been part of it. It coats the hair shaft, which reduces friction between strands and makes combing through knots less of a fight, and it leaves a visible gloss. Now the part most people online skip. Pure castor oil is so thick that using it alone leaves hair heavy and takes several washes to remove. Cut it with a lighter oil at roughly 1 part castor to 3 parts coconut, almond, or sesame. Warm it slightly, work it through the lengths, leave it 30 to 60 minutes, then shampoo out. That ratio is the difference between shine and a greasy week. Number 7. Add it to homemade soap for better lather. If anyone in your house makes soap, this is the most useful thing to know about castor oil. Add it at around 5 to 8% of your total oils, and the lather changes character completely, becoming denser, creamier, and more stable, instead of thin and quick to collapse. It behaves this way because castor oil is chemically unusual among common oils, and that difference carries into the finished bar. Go beyond about 10%, and you tip into the opposite problem, a bar that stays soft, sticky, and slow to cure. This is why almost every good shampoo bar and shaving soap recipe contains a small percentage of castor oil, and never a large one. Number 6. Know about the water mixing version of it. Castor oil can be chemically treated into a form called turkey red oil, and unlike ordinary oil, it disperses in water instead of floating on it. It was developed in the 19th century for the textile trade, where it let dye penetrate cotton evenly, and India's dyeing and printing industry has used it ever since. You can buy it cheaply today, and around the house it works as a gentle surfactant. A small amount in a bucket of water helps rinse residue out of hand-washed fabric, and it is common in bath oils for the same reason. Ask for Turkey red oil by name. Number 5. Condition leather footwear before the monsoon, not during it. There is a right time to do this, and most people miss it. Once leather shoes are already wet and swollen, oil sits on the surface and does not penetrate. Treat them at the end of the dry season instead. Clean the leather, let it dry fully for a day, then work castor oil into the whole shoe with your fingers, spending extra time on the welt where the upper meets the sole, because that seam is where water gets in first. Leave it overnight, then buff off the excess. Oiled leather absorbs far less water, dries faster afterwards, and does not stiffen into that hard, cracked shape that ruins a good pair of shoes after one season. Number 4. Lift paint, tar and ink off your hands and off hard surfaces. Before you go looking for thinner or kerosene to get oil paint off your hands, try the oil first. Most paints, printing inks and tar are oil-based, which means they will dissolve into another oil. Rub castor oil firmly into the stain and give it 2 minutes to break the bond. Then wash with dish soap and warm water. Soap is what removes the oil and the dissolved paint together, so do not skip it. On hard surfaces like tiles, steel, or a painted door frame where dried splashes have set, the same method saves you from scraping. It is slower than a solvent, and it is far kinder to skin and to whatever finish sits underneath. Before the final 3, notice what has actually been happening across every one of these. This is not 25 unrelated tricks. It is one property showing up in 25 places. Castor oil is thick, it stays wherever you put it, and it does not harden. That is why it stays inside a hinge, clings to a vertical sticker, survives a digging blade, holds a film on stored iron, keeps a wax polish soft, and holds its position on a cracked heel overnight. Once you see the property, you stop memorizing hacks and start recognizing the situations. Anytime the job needs an oil that will not run off, evaporate or set, this is the bottle. That single idea is also what makes numbers 2 and 1 make sense. Number 3. Protect stored pulses and saved seed. Ask anyone who stores grain at home in an Indian household, and they will tell you about coating dals and pulses with a thin film of edible oil before sealing the container. The film blocks the tiny beetles that bore into pulses from getting a grip and from laying eggs on the seed surface, and the practice long predates anything sold in a packet. If you are doing this with food, use only food-grade edible castor oil bought as such. Use a genuinely small amount, roughly half a teaspoon per kilogram. Toss the pulses until every grain carries a faint sheen, and rinse well before cooking. For seed you are saving to plant rather than eat, the same coating works and the food-grade question does not arise. Number 2. And here is the mistake almost everybody makes. Do not use castor oil to season cast iron or to finish a chopping board. This is the most common misuse of this oil online, and it happens because people assume any oil will do. It will not. Oils fall into 2 groups. Drying oils react with air, harden and turn into a solid protective layer, which is what seasoning a pan actually is. Castor oil is a non-drying oil. It never hardens, at any temperature, for any length of time. Use it to season a tawa, and you will not build a coating. You will build a sticky film that turns gummy and traps dirt. On a chopping board it stays tacky and goes off. Everything else on this list works precisely because castor oil never sets. This one job needs an oil that does. And now number 1, the most counterintuitive thing about this oil, and the thing that explains all 24 items above it. Castor oil is chemically unlike any other common oil in your house, because the fatty acid that makes up the overwhelming majority of it carries an extra chemical group that no other everyday cooking oil has. That single feature is the reason it is so thick, the reason it clings, the reason it refuses to harden, and the reason the leather, soap, and lubricant industries all reach for it. It also produces one genuinely useful property that nobody talks about. Castor oil mixes completely with alcohol, which almost no other oil will do, and you can use that. Mix 1 part castor oil into 3 parts ordinary rubbing alcohol in a small spray bottle, and shake it. It will not separate. What you now have is a thin, sprayable liquid that goes exactly where thick oil cannot reach, deep inside a lock barrel, down into the crimped joint of a hinge, into the pivot of a pair of pliers, along a stiff seam in a leather bag. The alcohol carries the oil in and then evaporates within a minute, leaving pure castor oil sitting in the one place you could never have reached with a dropper. This is the same principle behind commercial penetrating sprays, and it works because of that extra chemical group. Keep it away from flames while you spray it, because the alcohol is flammable until it has evaporated, and label the bottle clearly. If there is one thing to take from this entire video, it is that this bottle is not a single-use item. It is a specific tool with a specific property, and once you understand the property, you will keep finding uses for it.
Try even 3 or 4 of these this week, and you will stop thinking of that bottle as something that sits at the back of a shelf. Tell me in the comments which one you are trying first.